What was the internal identity shift and mindset required to dismantle something so successful that provided so much safety in order to step into the unknown once again? What's the internal dialogue? What's the nature of overcoming this for you?
I have a very particular process when it comes to making an identity shift. And I've made so many identity shifts over the last couple of years very rapidly. And whenever I want to embody a new identity, I take myself through the exact same process. That process is first being aware of the identity that you're currently holding or playing. So let's say a couple years ago, I was in the identity of marketing coach. And that was probably when I had just hit 6 figures and I wanted to scale to 7 figures. I was like, okay, cool. If I want to do that, then I'm going to need to create a totally different identity. What is the identity of someone that has a 7-figure business? And the answer that came up was, well, they would be, a business owner. They would be an entrepreneur. They would be a CEO. And I was like, yeah, that feels like a really big jump. This was in kind of early 2021. And a lot of 2021 was me making this transition from seeing myself as a self-employed person, as a freelancer, to seeing myself as a CEO and asking myself this question. What environment would a CEO live in? Like, what environment would they, engage in, interact in? Like, where would they be? And where are there more of them? So how can I fill my reality with people who are successful CEOs and operating like that? And so first, I'm identifying the environment. Where are they? What environment is most conducive to that identity? Second, I'm looking for people who are already embodied or integrated in that identity. So I'm looking for more people who are successful business owners and CEOs. Next, I am asking myself what actions or behaviors are involved in that identity. So what steps would that person take? What is going to fill their day? Like, how would they act? How would they behave? And so with the CEO identity, what I was thinking was, a self-employed person probably doesn't have advanced financial management skills. They probably don't really know how to manage profit. When I say probably don't, it's because I didn't back then. And so a really big part of making that leap into that identity was doing a lot of financial literacy training and understanding, like, what even are my profit margins? Because I didn't know that before and I had to learn that. And it was very hard and very scary for me to learn those things when I was scared of money my whole life, and to understand all of the terminology that a CEO would understand. And so I was like, okay, well, that's ultimately a different job. So I need to learn that job, because right now I know the job of being a coach and teaching marketing, but I don't know what KPIs I would need to measure if I was being a CEO. So then I looked it up and I was like, okay, they measure profitability. They have a P&L. They have a spreadsheet. And a lot of being a CEO is actually just finance. It's really fucking boring. And so I basically looked at the job description for CEOs and executives, and then I kind of taught myself that job. And so then the last stage is beliefs, because the beliefs will support the behaviors. And so it's like, okay, what would they think? How would they think? What beliefs support that identity? And then it's just kind of like installing those beliefs. So after I had successfully integrated and embodied the CEO identity, I then wanted to become an investor and to like integrate that into myself. And that was a lot of 2022 was me going, okay, cool. What would an investor do? What would that look like? And that's why I invested in all of those companies. That's why I developed real estate, because I wanted to, I thought that if I embodied the investor identity, that would bring about a path of financial freedom, because investors are financially free. And only if I was an investor, as we know from my story about cash flow quadrant, could I then have the time and the financial freedom to go and be an artist. So I joined masterminds with other successful investors. I spent more time with other investors or people that were really integrated in their ability to invest. I learned about investing and I behaved in a way that's congruent with that. And I thought about the beliefs about how investors think and how they calculate and make their financial decisions. And then after the investing identity, there was the leap into the filmmaker writer, artist identity. And I did start shifting into that in 2023. And so part of that process was me going, okay, what's the environment? And it was me going, well, ideally, if I'm a successful creative, I probably want to live in America because that's where a lot of successful, famous writers are and where a lot of successful, famous filmmakers are. So I want to spend more time in the US versus being in Bali, for example, or, you know, somewhere else where there aren't just that dense population of successful creatives. And then it was going, cool, where do they hang out? Well, they hang out at Summit, so I'm going to go there, you know, and they hang out in these environments and at these film festivals. And so I was going to film festivals. I was spending more time with successful creatives and trying to like build more of a network of creatives, and then just adopting that same process into that identity and feeling more integrated in that, you know? So I think for me, when my physical reality starts to reflect more of what I'm trying to create, it creates this like transition that happens very naturally and very automatically, where you just shift into this other identity and you start really seeing yourself that way because your reality is reflecting that. And I think a really big thing for me that accelerates that process is being surrounded by people who are doing that thing. That is like my best advice for fast tracking that process, is finding people who are doing what you want to do and immerse yourself into that environment. It's so underrated as an action step, and it will be responsible for 90% of the outcome.